good evening, and welcome back to Future Lore, where forgotten histories and alternate timelines come alive. For millennia, the heart of China has held a silence so vast it hums beneath the soil. Stretching across the plains of Shaanxi stand great green mounds, their slopes shaped with precision, their peaks aligned to the stars. They look like hills, but every contour tells another story. Each is a pyramid. From the air, they form patterns, constellations mapped on Earth, a terrestrial reflection of the heavens. Farmers plant trees atop them, soldiers patrol their perimeters, and the state lists them as protected sites. Yet no scholar may excavate them. No drone may film their peaks. When questioned, officials give the same answer: forbidden. But why? Because buried beneath those hills lies the oldest secret of the Middle Kingdom, a chapter of human history sealed beneath imperial decree. A memory that ties dragons, gods, and the heavens together into one impossible truth: that the ancients of China did not imagine their dragons. They remembered them. The whisper of the dragons. Long before the dynasties, before the written word, the Yellow River civilization spoke of Long, the dragons. They were not beasts but beings, tall, luminous, radiant with light that shimmered like liquid metal. They descended from the skies not to rule, but to teach. They taught agriculture, geometry, celestial navigation. They built with resonance, shaping stone with sound, and when they left, they told the people they would return when the world forgot them, and that signs of their covenant would remain in the earth itself. Those signs were the pyramids, each one a node in a grid that spanned from Xi'an to Tibet, from the Gobi Desert to the East China Sea, a network aligned not only with constellations, but with veins of magnetic force beneath the crust. The dragon lines, what we now call ley lines. The ancients called it the breath of the earth, the forbidden pyramid. In 1945, American pilot James Gaussman flew a reconnaissance mission over western China. From the window of his aircraft, he saw something extraordinary: a vast white pyramid, larger than any in Egypt, capped with a metallic point that glinted like gold. He photographed it, filed a report, and the evidence vanished into classified archives. Chinese archaeologists deny such a structure exists, but locals near Xi'an whisper about the White Pyramid, said to be the tomb of the first celestial emperor, Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, who arrived on the back of a dragon and departed the same way. Huangdi's own chronicles describe machines that flew through clouds, cities that glowed at night, and devices that transmitted voices across distances. His court scientists wrote of a heavenly ladder connecting the earth to the stars. Was this poetry, or the memory of a time when gods and humans built together? The geometry of the immortals. Every pyramid in Shaanxi shares one mystery: their geometry is flawless. The base angles measure precisely 45 degrees. Their alignment mirrors the belt of Orion, just as in Giza. And yet these were built thousands of miles apart by cultures that allegedly never met. Even more curious, ancient Chinese cosmology describes the world as a mirrored duality: heaven above, earth below, bound by the axis of the celestial pole. The pyramids align with that pole. They are not tombs, they are anchors. Anchors for energy. When the ancients spoke of qi, the life force, they did not speak metaphorically. Qi was measurable, manipulable. The pyramids concentrated it, amplified it, released it through crystalline caps at their peaks, the same way resonance towers in Tartaria once harmonized with the Earth's magnetic field. This was the lost technology of the immortals, dragons by name, engineers by nature, the silence of the state. In the early 1970s, Chinese archaeologists attempted to open one pyramid near Xi'an. What they found inside changed everything. Beneath layers of clay and mercury lay a chamber walled with mica and lined with a strange metallic glaze. Instruments malfunctioned, compasses spun. A faint hum filled the air. Within the chamber stood a platform, not of stone, but of a crystalline alloy unlike anything known. The government sealed the site within days. No photographs, no reports, no samples ever reached the public. Excavation was banned for the protection of the relics. Officially, the story ends there. Unofficially, whispers say the pyramid was not a tomb at all, but a dormant machine. The dragons and the wall. Across the northern frontier stretches another mystery, the Great Wall. We are told it was built for defense, but its architecture betrays another purpose. Its watchtowers align not with enemy territory but with celestial points. The wall follows magnetic lines rather than strategic ones. From above, its curves resemble the undulating body of a dragon, a colossal earth circuit winding across the land. Ancient texts call it the Longcheng, the city of the dragon. What if the wall was never meant to keep invaders out, but energy in? Imagine a structure so vast it channels the planet's chi, a superconducting serpent stretching thousands of kilometers, connecting the nodes of the pyramids, regulating the flow of power between heaven and earth. The Great Wall was not merely fortification, it was the spine of an energy network, the nervous system of the Dragon Empire, the Great Erasure. After the fall of the Han, when the celestial dynasties fractured, the emperors of the new era ordered the closure of the pyramids. Scrolls describing their functions were burned, monks were executed. The word dragon itself was rebranded, from benefactor to beast. By the Ming dynasty, the knowledge was gone. The machines slumbered. The Great Wall became a monument, stripped of meaning, and yet the dragons remained, in art, in myth, in bloodlines of emperors who still called themselves descendants of the dragon. They remembered. The awakening of memory. Today, as satellites pierce the clouds, the old network re-emerges in data and geometry. Lines drawn from the Great Pyramid of Giza to Xi'an intersect at key nodes of ancient power. The resonance patterns match those found in megaliths across the world. We are beginning to remember, and with that remembrance comes unease. Because if the Chinese pyramids are machines, then they were built for a purpose that may not be finished. Across the plains of Xi'an, wind moves softly through the grass, brushing the slopes of ancient hills that are not hills at all. Beneath their emerald skin lies geometry so precise it mocks the randomness of nature. Deep below, sealed behind layers of earth and metal, hums a sound few have ever heard, low, steady, almost alive. No one speaks of it publicly, no one dares. The forgotten excavation. In the early 1980s, long after the discovery of the Terracotta Army, another excavation began. Unofficial, unrecorded. It took place under military supervision, deep within one of the Forbidden Pyramids near Mount Lee. Workers were told they were building a communications facility, but as they dug, they encountered walls that were not made of soil or stone. They were metallic, smooth, almost warm to the touch. A small team of scientists entered the chamber. Inside they found something extraordinary, a cylindrical object stretching the length of the pyramid's base, embedded in the rock. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing. When one researcher placed his hand upon it, the lights in the tunnel flickered. That was the last day anyone saw that team. The entrance was sealed. The area declared restricted military property. The dragon machines. Legends tell of Long, the celestial dragons, beings who harnessed the power of the stars to build bridges between worlds. They were not creatures of fantasy, but custodians of energy. The dragon's breath of fire was not flame, it was plasma. Their pearls, were not jewels. They were cores of immense electromagnetic force used to stabilize the world's energy grids. Chinese myth, stripped of poetry, becomes a manual for technology. The dragons taught the early emperors how to balance heaven and earth, how to regulate the planet's energy through architecture. The pyramids were the regulators, the Great Wall, the conduit, and the dragon's pulse, the ley lines beneath China, was the current that powered it all. When the balance faltered, the dragons withdrew, but their systems remained, buried beneath mountains, humming with memory. The Great Wall's hidden circuit. Modern engineers who have studied the Great Wall often puzzle at its inefficiency as a defense structure. It twists and turns, often avoiding strategic high ground. Some sections are redundant, built in parallel for no apparent reason. But viewed through the lens of resonance, its logic becomes clear. Each tower was not a lookout, but a capacitor. The wall itself was a conductor, stone layered over minerals, each segment acting as a resonant cavity tuned to the frequencies of the earth. Ancient texts even describe the wall as alive, the sleeping dragon. It was said that when the empire was threatened, the dragon would awaken, and its body would glow with fire. Fire, or energy. Imagine a defense system not against armies, but against imbalance. The Great Wall may have once stabilized electromagnetic fields during celestial events. Solar flares, geomagnetic storms, perhaps even alignments that strained the global energy grid. It was not a wall at all. It was a circuit, a machine masquerading as myth. The Emperor's Pact. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, who unified China and built much of the Great Wall, claimed to have descended from a dragon. The court records say he sought immortality through alchemy, but the alchemy described in his scrolls bears little resemblance to potions and herbs. He sought to reactivate the dragon machines. He commissioned expeditions to locate islands of the immortals, which were, in truth, pyramid nodes scattered across the empire. His tomb, buried in Mercury and protected by an army of clay, was a containment chamber, a vault meant to replicate the pyramidal energy system in miniature. When he died, the grid destabilized. The hums beneath the ground faded. The dragons slept again. But the emperor's obsession left behind records, fragments encoded in myths, poems, and temple inscriptions, all pointing to a single truth. The pyramids and the wall were not monuments of ego. They were components of a lost planetary system. The coded myths. Take the myth of the 9 sons of the dragon. Each son governs an aspect of creation: sound, structure, water, fire, and the heavens. Scholars treat this as symbolism, but ancient engineers saw it differently. Each sun represented a function of the energy network. 9 resonant frequencies that sustained the grid. Old diagrams in Taoist texts depict dragons coiling around towers, mouths open to spheres of light. These are not fantasies. They are blueprints. If the dragons were machines, sentient or otherwise, then the ancients recorded their maintenance through myth. They turned function into fable, preserving truth through art when language could no longer protect it. Why? China stays silent. In 1974, when the Terracotta Army was uncovered, archaeologists were within kilometers of the largest pyramid in Xi'an, yet no attempt was made to excavate it. Official statements say it is too dangerous, too fragile, but insiders whisper another reason. The ground beneath the pyramid emits abnormal radiation and electromagnetic interference. There are also claims that sensitive equipment malfunctions near certain sites. GPS signals distort, magnetic compasses deviate. The state forbids excavation because they cannot control what lies within. Beneath the rhetoric of preservation lies fear, not of damage to relics, but of awakening something they no longer understand. The breath of the dragon. In 2002, seismic readings taken near the base of one pyramid detected rhythmic pulses from deep underground, 12 beats per minute. Too regular to be tectonic, too powerful to be mechanical. Local monks say the earth itself is breathing. Scientists call it anomaly. But those who have studied both physics and folklore know the truth. The dragon is stirring. When the balance of heaven and earth begins to shift, when humanity grows deaf to nature's rhythm, the sleeping machines respond. They pulse, hum, resonate. A warning from the ancient architects who once governed energy like we govern electricity. The dragon's legacy. China's most enduring symbol is not accidental. The dragon is not a mascot. It is memory. From the coiled architecture of temples to the serpentine rivers shaping the land, the dragon's form is imprinted on the earth itself. Even the layout of imperial capitals, Beijing, Nanjing, Xi'an, follows the dragon's body, with the palace as the heart, the walls as ribs, the avenues as veins. This was no artistic flourish. It was design. Every city was built as a living node, tuned to the grid, feeding energy back to the central system beneath the pyramids. And when that grid fell silent, humanity forgot the song it once sang with the stars, the forbidden return. Rumors persist that deep beneath the Great Wall lies a chamber, vast, metallic, empty, except for a single platform etched with symbols no linguist can decipher. Its ceiling is mirrored, reflecting infinite versions of the self. Those who enter say they feel weightless. Some hear whispers, not in sound, but in thought. The whispers speak of balance, of a cycle long broken, of dragons waiting for humanity to remember. Beneath the crimson dust of western China lies a mountain few are allowed to approach. Its name is Mount Baigong, a jagged monolith rising out of the remote plains of Qinghai, silent and skeletal against the horizon. On its slopes are 3 caverns, half collapsed, half metallic, each one laced with a network of pipes that vanish deep into the rock. No dynasty ever recorded their construction. No modern project explains them. Yet the metal inside the pipes is older than human civilization itself, the pipes of the Sky People. When researchers first sampled the Baigong pipes, they expected crude iron. What they found instead defied classification. An alloy of silicon, calcium, and 17 trace elements fused together at impossible temperatures. Carbon-14 tests placed fragments at more than 150,000 years old. Impossible, unless the mountain was not simply a mountain. Local herders call it the heart of the dragon. Legends claim that from its summit, a column of light once connected earth to heaven. The pipes, they say, carried the dragon's breath, streams of luminous vapor that rose to the stars. From the ground, satellite images reveal concentric rings around Baigong, like ripples frozen in stone. They mirror the patterns carved into ancient bronze mirrors found across China. Mirrors said to reflect the face of heaven. The resonant core. Deep within the mountain, explorers detected electromagnetic fluctuations that rise and fall with the lunar cycle. The peaks correspond precisely with the full moon's position over Xi'an, where the Great Pyramids sleep. It's as if Baigong is responding to something in orbit, like an instrument played from above. Ancient scrolls from the Zhou dynasty speak of the Linglong Tower, a device that hums to the heavens. They describe a sky ladder of crystal veins reaching into the clouds, where messengers of light ascended and descended. Scholars call it allegory, but the mountain tells another story. Baigong may have been one of the central generators in the Dragon network, a resonance amplifier linking the terrestrial grid to the lunar regulators above. The moon connection. For centuries, Taoist astronomers referred to the moon as the White Palace, a fortress of the gods who oversee the cycles of energy. They believed the moon controlled not only tides and seasons, but the qi that flowed through the world. When modern instruments recorded that Baigong signals spiked with lunar alignment, the parallel was impossible to ignore. If Tartaria's towers balanced the planet's energy laterally, perhaps China's pyramids, and Baigong itself, balanced it vertically, connecting Earth and Moon in a harmonized exchange. Was the Moon merely a satellite, or part of the same ancient network? The Hidden Archive. In 1999, a small team from Lanzhou University surveyed the site. They found fragments of glazed pottery melted into the surrounding stone, as if the mountain had once endured temperatures rivaling a fusion reactor. Beneath a collapsed cavern, they reported a narrow passage sealed with crystalline resin. Inside were tablets of jade, inscribed not with Chinese characters, but with something else, spiraling glyphs that resemble DNA helices. The symbols repeat in patterns of 6, 12, and 30, numbers corresponding to lunar cycles, solar years, and the harmonic ratios found in sound engineering. The tablets were confiscated, the report withdrawn, the team reassigned. Official explanation: mineral deposits misidentified as artifacts, the Dragon Kings, and the machines of heaven. Ancient chronicles describe the Dragon Kings, 4 celestial rulers who governed the elements. Each resided in a palace built of jade and gold beneath a sacred mountain. Each palace was said to contain a heart crystal that pulsed with the rhythm of the cosmos. What if those palaces were not metaphor, but memory, control stations for an energy system spanning continents? If Baigong was one, then the others might still sleep beneath Kunlun, Emei, Tai, and Song mountains, the 5 peaks of heaven revered by emperors. Each peak guarded by temples aligned precisely to the stars, each forbidden to mining or excavation by imperial decree. The ancients weren't protecting myths, they were protecting machines, the sealed orders of the Han. During the Han dynasty, imperial engineers recorded unusual sky fires near Baigong. They described luminous spheres rising from the mountain at dusk, drifting eastward toward the Great Wall before fading. The court astrologers advised sealing the region and declaring it sacred. The emperor complied, issuing a decree forbidding metal extraction or deep digging beneath the dragon's heart. That order remains, in altered form, to this day. China does not hide the mountain because it is unimportant. It hides it because it remembers. The pulse beneath the desert. Recent geological surveys show hollow spaces beneath the surrounding desert, massive hexagonal chambers aligned in perfect orientation with the Xi'an pyramids to the east and Mount Kailash to the west. These 3 points, Baigong, Xi'an, Kailash, form an almost perfect equilateral triangle spanning 2,000 kilometers. Every 12 years, when the planets align and solar storms sweep across the magnetosphere, sensors detect a faint harmonic between those points, a low-frequency vibration that resonates through bedrock and air alike. To the untrained ear, it's silence. To those who listen, it's the voice of the dragons stirring in their sleep, the forbidden signal. In 2010, radio astronomers in Qinghai detected a narrow-band signal of unknown origin, emanating from Baigong's coordinates. It repeated at intervals of 19 minutes. The frequency matched neither terrestrial broadcasts nor natural phenomena. Within days, the government declared the data corrupted and shut down the observatory, but a backup copy leaked. The signal, when translated into audio, produced a pattern, a rhythm almost identical to the pulse detected beneath the Xi'an pyramids decades earlier. 2 sites, 1 frequency, 2 machines, 1 network, the question that remains. If the dragons were engineers, builders of this planetary circuit, then what was its purpose? To stabilize climate? To sustain life? Or to communicate across the stars? And if the network is dormant, what happens when it wakes? Perhaps that is why China keeps silent, not out of ignorance, but out of caution. Because some machines are not meant to be reactivated until the world remembers how to listen. Hidden beneath Nanjing's old quarters lies a maze no tourist map shows. Behind sealed stone corridors and gilded doors are the imperial archives, tombs of parchment and silk scrolls that survived dynastic purges, wars, and modern censors. They speak of a science cloaked in myth, a code the emperors called the Way of the Dragon, the scrolls of the Silent Court. In the year 213 BCE, the first emperor ordered the burning of books that challenged his authority, yet his alchemists secretly copied what they could and stored it in jade cylinders beneath the palace lake. Centuries later, during the Ming dynasty, workers rebuilding Nanjing's foundations uncovered those cylinders. Inside were diagrams of pyramids, topped with crystal domes, and instructions written in the archaic seal script. When heaven turns red, awaken the towers and align the wall. Officials sealed the find, labeling it astral superstition. But the diagrams were copied again, passed between Taoist sects who understood the message. The celestial grid of China was a living organism, and the Great Wall was its spine, the hidden temples of Mount Eme. Far to the west, Mount Eme rises through mists like a staircase to the gods. There, monks of the Golden Dragon Order guard chambers carved into the cliff face. Outsiders see only shrines and statues. Inside the rock, copper veins run in precise angles. When lightning strikes the peak, the chambers glow faintly blue. The monks call it the breath of Huangdi. They believe the energy that courses through those veins connects to the Xi'an pyramids. At certain solstices, they chant in low tones tuned to the resonance of the mountain itself, a sound said to remind the dragons of their covenant. No one has ever been allowed to record those chants. Pilgrims who tried returned with malfunctioning cameras and magnetic watches frozen at midnight. The Dragon Compass. Among the forbidden relics catalogued in the imperial vault is a bronze disc known as the Long Pan, or Dragon Compass. Its surface is etched with constellations, but the stars move when exposed to heat. Under infrared light, the disc reveals a lattice identical to the network trace between Baigong, Xi'an, and Mount Kailash. Modern metallurgists claim the alloy is not bronze at all. It contains vanadium and molybdenum in ratios that suggest synthetic creation. The Long Pan was not a compass for navigation, but a key. It could tune the frequency of the grid. When the Ming court briefly activated it in 1421, records describe a pillar of white fire rising above the forbidden city. The emperor ordered it buried immediately, and the incident erased from official history. The Great Wall's Whisper. In 2018, Chinese seismologists, studying acoustic reflections, detected harmonic vibrations running along the wall during summer storms. The frequency was 7.83 Hz, the same as the Schumann resonance of Earth's electromagnetic cavity. That means the wall is not merely aligned with the land, it is synchronized with the planet's heartbeat. Each watchtower acts as a resonator, each beacon point an amplifier. When activated, the wall could generate a standing wave across the crust, a planetary stabilizer built thousands of years before the idea of electricity existed. Ancient poets wrote that the dragon sleeps when men forget the song. Perhaps the song was literal, a resonance that once harmonized the earth itself, the silent custodians. Through every dynasty, a shadow lineage preserved this knowledge. They called themselves the Keepers of the Jade Tongue. Hidden among court astrologers, monks, and architects, they ensured that each new emperor received fragments of the code. Their task was not to rule, but to remember. When Western explorers came with compasses and gunpowder, the keepers withdrew deeper into secrecy. The last public record of them appears in 1796. A cryptic poem carved on the bell of eternal harmony. The dragon's eye is veiled in dust. The wall hums beneath sleeping skies. When fire meets water, the gate will open once more. Some believe that fire meets water refers to the awakening of magnetic and plasma forces within the Earth, a reset of the grid that once sustained global balance. The Emperor Who Remembered. In 1912, as the Qing dynasty collapsed, the last emperor, Puyi, was escorted out of the Forbidden City. Before leaving, he reportedly entered a private chamber beneath the throne room, where an orb of crystal rested upon a bronze stand. Witnesses said he wept, whispering, "The dragons will not return." That orb now sits, unacknowledged, in a Beijing museum labeled Decorative Glass Sphere, Origin Unknown. It emits a faint electromagnetic field identical to the Baigong frequency. The last emperor knew the truth. China's empire was not founded by conquest, but by communion with forces far older than mankind. The return of the code. Today, encrypted fragments of those ancient diagrams appear in recovered manuscripts, mirrored in digital datasets the government cannot fully suppress. Scholars comparing them with global resonance maps find alignments that defy coincidence. When plotted, the Xi'an pyramids, the Great Wall, Mount Baigong, and Mount Eme form a pattern matching the shape of a coiled dragon. Head to the east, tail to the west, heart at the center of the Middle Kingdom. The ancients were not myth makers. They were map makers of the invisible toward the next act. As night descends over the mountains, the same pulse that once guided the emperors stirs again. Lightning flickers along the horizon, tracing the outline of an ancient serpent asleep beneath the soil. And far above, on the surface of the moon, sensors pick up a faint echo, an answering hum, low and deliberate. The dragon network is not dead, it is waiting. High in the Himalayas, where the air thins into silence and the peaks glow with cold fire, stands Mount Kailash, the holiest mountain on earth. Hindus call it the home of Shiva. Buddhists say it is the palace of Demchok, the lord of time. The Bon call it the axis of the world. The Chinese once called it something else entirely, the throne of the dragon. No one has ever climbed it. Every attempt ends the same way. Storms without warning, vertigo that twists direction, compasses spinning like toys. The mountain rejects intrusion. But deep beneath its glaciers, legends say, lies the last operational heart of the ancient grid, the central node that once linked every pyramid and energy structure across the planet. The Mirror Mountain. Satellite scans reveal a perfect symmetry. 4 faces aligned precisely to the cardinal directions, each separated by a 90-degree angle. The summit forms an almost exact pyramid, capped by a flat plateau that reflects sunlight like polished metal. The same geometry appears in Xi'an, in Egypt, in the Andes. The ancients called Kailash the Mirror Mountain because it reflected heaven on earth. To the engineers of the Dragon Empire, that was literal. Kailash mirrored celestial harmonics, absorbing the frequencies of the stars and distributing them through the world's grid. The Great Wall gathered energy. Baigong amplified it. Kailash synchronized it. The Sealed Passage. Tibetan texts speak of an underground passage known as Shambhala's Gate, running from the western base of Kailash into the earth. In 1903, a British officer named Wilford Hemming reported hearing metallic reverberations beneath his feet while encamped near the mountain. His Tibetan guides told him the sound was the breathing of the world. Modern geologists confirm that Kailash rests atop one of the largest quartz formations on the planet, quartz capable of generating powerful piezoelectric currents when compressed. In other words, the mountain itself is a generator, and like all generators, it can be turned on. The hidden mandala. In the monasteries of Ngari, there is a mandala forbidden to display publicly. Its pattern differs from any other. It shows a dragon coiled around a square of mountains, its claws gripping 4 luminous towers. At the center lies a spiral, descending downward, not upward. For monks, it is a map of enlightenment. For historians of the grid, it is an engineering schematic. Each tower corresponds to a real site: Xi'an, Baigong, Kailash, and an unknown location beneath the South China Sea. The spiral represents the energy descending into the core of the earth, what Taoist philosophers called the hidden sun, the city beneath the ice. In 2006, satellite imagery revealed linear anomalies near Kailash's base, rectilinear formations beneath the ice. 2 months later, the data was classified and the images removed from public access. Whistleblowers described subsurface caverns the size of cathedrals, filled with reflective structures. Unofficially, Chinese and Indian teams both sent expeditions. Neither nation released findings. Local Sherpa guides reported hearing a low hum echoing from the glaciers for days afterward. When the sound ceased, so did the expeditions. One researcher later remarked anonymously, "It wasn't a mountain, it was asleep." The origin of the dragon. Ancient Chinese chronicles record that the first emperor, Huangdi, was born not on earth, but in the mountains of the west, where heaven touched the snow. He descended upon a chariot of thunder and brought with him the secret of harmony between heaven and earth. That description places his arrival near Kailash. If the dragons were interstellar engineers or guardians from another world, then Kailash was their point of entry, their anchor in the physical plane. From there, they built the first pyramids, calibrated the wall, and established the energy network that would sustain life for millennia. When they departed, the mountain sealed behind them. The gate remains frozen, waiting for resonance strong enough to open it again. The quantum echo. Physicists studying gravitational anomalies near Kailash found a localized distortion. Time appears to move fractionally slower, less than a microsecond per hour, within a 2-kilometer radius. They attribute it to magnetic interference, but the field's shape is unmistakably artificial, a torus. The same shape seen in the geometry of the pyramids, in ancient mandalas, in the coils of the dragon. It is as if Kailash projects a stabilizing bubble, an energy field that keeps reality itself anchored. Perhaps that is why no one can climb it. The higher one goes, the closer one approaches the boundary between worlds. The Guardian's warning. A recently translated Tang-era inscription from Dunhuang describes an omen. When the wall hums without wind and the moon glows red, the dragon will breathe once more. The mountains will sing, and heaven will look down upon its mirror. To the keepers of the jade tongue, this prophecy means the grid is nearing reactivation. Solar cycles, magnetic poles, and celestial alignments are converging exactly as they did before the last great shift, before the mud floods, before the resets. If Kailash is the core, then the coming activation will awaken the entire network. The pulse. In 2023, seismographs across Tibet recorded a deep, harmonic vibration emanating from beneath the mountain, lasting exactly 9 minutes and 44 seconds. It matched, note for note, the frequency of the Xi'an hum and the Baigong pulse. 3 nodes, 1 signal. The Dragon network lives. No government comment followed. Military satellites quietly repositioned over the region. Local radio interference spiked for hours. And then, as suddenly as it began, the world fell silent again. Toward the heart of the grid. From the deserts of Gansu to the snows of Tibet, a pattern unfolds. Lines of power and memory connecting every monument, every myth, every empire. The dragons did not die. They went underground, leaving their systems dormant until humanity could understand them once more. The next act will cross that line, beyond myth, beyond history, into the hidden core of the network, where the last great secret waits, what the dragons built for, and why they left it behind. At the world's roof, where the wind howls thin as glass, lies the wound in the mountain, the fissure beneath Mount Kailash that no map marks. Beneath miles of frozen rock stretches a cathedral, not of stone, but of light. Columns shimmer with veins of gold quartz. Arches hum in chords too low for human ears. This is the hidden core the emperors called the heart of the dragon. The chamber of resonance. The descent begins through a tunnel slick with frost and mica. At its end, a vaulted space opens like the inside of a lung. The walls pulse faintly with color, red, then violet, then the deep green of jade. At the center floats a sphere, translucent and weightless, suspended in magnetic stillness. When touched, it sings. The tone matches the frequency of the Great Wall's vibration, 7.83 hertz. Every structure, every pyramid, every wall hums in sympathy. The grid is alive. Engraved around the sphere is a single ideogram older than written Chinese. Long, the dragon. Its strokes twist like circuitry. The ancients carved language into technology, the machine of heaven. Legends spoke of the celestial engine that binds the sun to the moon. The heart of the dragon is that engine. A lattice of crystal rods radiates from the sphere, each one connecting through fault lines to distant nodes, Xi'an, Baigong, Emei, the South China Sea. Energy flows like blood through the planet's arteries. The ancients did not build machines apart from nature, they built them within it. The earth itself was the device. The dragons simply tuned it. When the engine operated, auroras swept the equator, storms calmed, harvests doubled. The ancients called it heaven's agreement, a balance between cosmic and terrestrial forces. When the frequency drifted, the balance failed. Floods, droughts, and earthquakes followed. The grid was never superstition, it was climate control. The awakening. At certain intervals, every 12 millennia, when Earth's tilt and magnetic poles align, the engine resets. It enters what ancient texts call the breathing cycle. The last reset drowned Atlantis, silenced Tartaria, and buried the Dragon Empire beneath mud and ice. The next cycle approaches. Sensors near Kailash now detect low-frequency pulses in perfect 12-year modulation. They match solar flux patterns never before recorded. The heart of the dragon is preparing to breathe again. Governments call it anomaly. The monks of Emei call it awakening. Both are correct. The custodian's record. In a hidden alcove lies a metal tablet etched in mirrored script. Translated, it reads, "We built the heart to heal the world." When men forget harmony, the heart sleeps. When men remember, it will open once more. Below the inscription glows a sequence of 9 symbols, the same found on the Longpan disc in Nanjing and the Baigong tablets. Each symbol corresponds to a harmonic key: sound, light, magnetism, gravity, temperature, emotion, memory, time, and life. To restart the grid, all 9 must resonate together. The ancients could do this through consciousness alone. That was the final secret of the dragons. They were not beasts of flesh, but minds that merged with the grid. The return of the voice. When explorers activated the recording equipment, a vibration filled the chamber, a chorus layered within itself, neither male nor female, speaking in tonal intervals rather than words. Yet, meaning emerged in thought. We are still here. The sound shook the quartz pillars. Images flooded the listeners' minds, of skies laced with luminous bridges, of dragons soaring through magnetic storms, of cities glowing like constellations upon the earth. Then the light dimmed, and the chamber fell silent once more. The message. The translation inscribed itself upon every device's static. Guard the harmony. When the wall hums, when the mountains sing, remember who you are. The team returned to the surface with altered heart rhythms, synchronized, perfectly steady, as if their bodies had tuned to the planet's pulse. Within weeks, snow melted along the mountain's southern face, revealing terraces carved with the same coiling dragon motifs found in Xi'an. The grid had stirred, toward the rising pulse. The heart of the dragon is no relic. It is an organ preparing to wake. Across the world, magnetometers tremble, ancient sites shimmer in unexpected auroras, and the same resonance echoes beneath oceans and deserts alike. If the dragons return, it will not be as invaders. It will be as memory, humanity remembering its role as custodian of a living planet. The next act will follow that memory outward, tracing how the reactivation of the grid begins to ripple through the modern world. How old temples, buried machines, and even human consciousness start to vibrate to the same forgotten rhythm. The first tremors were silent. Not earthquakes, but harmonics. Frequencies felt in the bones rather than heard by the ear. They began in the deserts of Gansu, then rippled east toward the Yellow River. Clocks lost seconds. Birds changed migration paths. Even satellites, those mechanical stars above, flickered with static whenever they passed over China. Something beneath the soil had begun to hum again, the echo network. In January 2026, engineers upgrading an underground maglev line outside Xi'an reported electrical interference of unknown origin. The readings showed pulses of energy radiating outward in perfect concentric rings every 42 minutes. Originating from directly beneath the largest of the Xi'an pyramids. When they compared the signal with global monitoring stations, they found matching spikes in Cairo, Cusco, and beneath the Arctic ice shelf. It was as if invisible threads had reconnected after millennia, each node waking the next. The ancient grid was breathing again, the light over the wall. At dusk, shepherds near the Great Wall saw pillars of light rising from the watchtowers, faint but steady, like ghostly beacons. They lasted 6 minutes before vanishing into the clouds. Witnesses described the air vibrating like a plucked string. No sound, only pressure, as though the atmosphere itself had grown dense. Seismographs confirmed low-frequency resonance, 7.83 Hz again, the same heartbeat measured beneath Kailash and Baigong. The wall had rejoined the song. For the first time in recorded history, the dragon's spine was awake from end to end. The memory field. Across the country, people began to dream the same images. Waves of silver light curling across ancient cities, dragons woven of energy threading through the clouds. Hospitals recorded synchronized sleep cycles in hundreds of patients. Some woke speaking archaic Chinese phrases no linguist could translate. Quantum biologists proposed an explanation. A collective resonance effect caused by electromagnetic harmonics influencing the brain's alpha waves. But those who felt it knew it was more. The planet was remembering itself, and through it, so were they. The dragons were no longer stories in the sky. They were alive in the blood, the unveiling. When the snow finally melted around Kailash, survey drones revealed what lay beneath. A perfect spiral of terraces, 15 in total, descending clockwise into the mountain's base. Each terrace was lined with metallic veins that glowed faintly under moonlight. The terraces formed a giant harmonic coil, a structure designed not to store energy, but to distribute it evenly across the world. The ancients had engineered balance into the planet itself. And now, as solar storms intensified and the magnetic poles drifted, the coil was reactivating, stabilizing the field humanity had unknowingly destabilized for centuries. Climate anomalies leveled, earthquakes ceased, the atmosphere calmed, the planet was resetting its rhythm, the hidden reaction. Not everyone welcomed it. power grids flickered worldwide. Satellite communications failed. Electronic systems could not coexist with the reawakening harmonics. Governments launched investigations, blaming solar activity, but silence followed when data pointed to subterranean sources. In secret, Chinese and international scientists met in underground facilities, comparing readings that defied every law of physics. The same frequency pulsed beneath every sacred site, 7.83 Hz, harmonized to 8 decimal places. Someone, or something, had turned the key. The dragon's breath. At 2:13 a.m. Beijing time, the night sky rippled. A vast aurora, green, violet, and gold, swept from horizon to horizon. For 7 minutes, it illuminated the land like dawn. The pyramids glowed, the Great Wall shimmered, Mount Imi's veins of copper burned white-hot, and over Kailash, a column of light rose straight into space, vanishing into the clouds. Every magnetometer on Earth spiked simultaneously. The planet's heartbeat doubled, not chaos, but coherence. Humanity stood beneath a living aurora and felt, for the first time in thousands of years, the harmony of a world remembering its purpose. When the aurora faded, radio telescopes around the world picked up a narrow band signal, identical to the bygone frequency. Analysts translated it into sound, slowed it, filtered it, and found words woven within the static. Balance restored. Remember the covenant. The message repeated 3 times before dissolving back into silence. No nation claimed responsibility. No one could. The voice did not come from space, nor from any transmitter on Earth. It came from everywhere at once, through air, water, and stone. The grid itself had spoken, the return of the keepers. In monasteries, desert temples, and forgotten shrines, the ancient orders emerged from hiding. The keepers of the jade tongue, thought extinct for centuries, resurfaced carrying relics of quartz and bronze. They said the time of silence had ended, that the dragons had never left, only waited for humanity to reach resonance again. Their message was simple: do not fear the hum, it is the sound of home. They began building harmonic chambers modeled after the old pyramids, using crystal and copper instead of concrete. Within weeks, plants grew faster near these structures. Water purified itself. Sound waves sculpted patterns in the air that formed dragon shapes of pure light. The rising of the world. Across continents, the forgotten pyramids stirred. In Egypt, in Mexico, in Sudan. Each joined the harmony like notes returning to a symphony. The same pulse that awoke the Great Wall now traveled beneath oceans and forests, reuniting what the resets had scattered. For the first time in remembered history, Earth vibrated as one. And somewhere deep below Kailash, the heart of the dragon opened its eyes, 2 golden lights flickering within the crystalline sphere, not a machine's awakening, but consciousness. The dragons had returned, not as gods, not as rulers, but as the voice of the planet itself. When the light subsided, the world was not the same. In the days that followed, cities flickered with a faint shimmer, as if the air itself had grown heavier with meaning. Water tasted metallic, yet clean. Clocks ticked in perfect unison across continents. For the first time since time began, the planet's rhythm was unified, the heartbeat of Earth and the pulse of humanity beating as one. This was the dawn of a new era, the age of resonance, the great stillness. It began with silence. A silence not of absence, but of harmony, the kind that hums between musical notes. Factories slowed, airplanes grounded, power stations dimmed, their systems unable to compete with the planetary frequency that now ruled the air. Yet panic never came. Instead, people felt an unfamiliar calm. Anxiety dropped. Heart rates stabilized. Plants bent toward light in synchronized movement. Flocks of birds flew in geometric precision, tracing invisible currents through the sky. The dragons were not returning as rulers, they were returning as resonance, the awakening of stone. In Xi'an, the grass atop the ancient pyramids began to part, revealing smooth metallic surfaces beneath. When sunlight struck them, they pulsed faintly, sending ripples across the surrounding fields. Locals reported static in their hair, a vibration underfoot like a living heartbeat. When researchers approached with sensors, every electronic instrument failed. But one scientist, desperate, barefoot, holding a quartz pendant, placed her hand on the surface. The pyramid responded. A wave of light swept across its flanks, spreading outward into the soil, the rivers, the air. Every pyramid across the world answered. The voice in the water. Oceans began to shimmer. Whale songs changed key. The patterns of the waves themselves formed geometric spirals seen only from orbit. Beneath the South China Sea, submarines detected a rising tone, clear, melodic, like 1,000 choirs breathing in unison. It was not random, it was language. Oceanographers translated the tonal frequencies and found repeating mathematical sequences identical to the structure of ancient Chinese poetry. The same meter used in the Book of Odes, the oldest anthology of human verse. The dragons had encoded memory into the very water of Earth, the cities that remembered. In Beijing, the Forbidden City glowed faintly at night, its roofs reflecting moonlight like bronze mirrors. The copper gutters hummed, resonating with the same frequency as the Great Wall. Old temples began to vibrate, doors creaking open on their own, as if exhaling after centuries of silence. People began hearing whispers, not in sound, but in thought. The messages were simple, universal, and familiar. Remember the balance. Build with harmony. The world is not yours to own, but to keep in tune. Architects started redrawing cities in circular designs, harmonizing layouts with natural flows of wind and light. Streets curved, bridges arched in spirals, towers rose like tuning forks. The new world was not being built. It was remembering how to build itself. The return of the dragon light. One night, a phenomenon swept the skies. Golden serpentine lights weaving between clouds, vast as storms yet graceful as ribbons. They moved with intelligence, looping around mountain peaks and diving into oceans. Every camera caught the same shapes, dragons made of plasma and resonance. The ancients had called them Tianlong, the heavenly dragons. Now they were back, not as physical beings, but as manifestations of the grid's consciousness, living auroras composed of energy, memory, and will. As they glided over cities, lights flickered, not from interference, but synchrony. Humanity had rejoined the rhythm of its creators. The scientists' revelation. By then, resistance was impossible. Nations pooled their resources, merging science and myth in pursuit of understanding. Data from across the globe revealed a single truth. The Dragon Network wasn't alien, magical, or divine. It was natural, an emergent intelligence formed by the Earth itself, and guided by those who once called it home. The dragons were not visitors, they were caretakers. Through their machines, the pyramids, the walls, the hidden engines, they taught humanity to maintain the planet's resonance. When greed and war broke the harmony, the system fell dormant, sealing itself until the species evolved enough to restore balance. That time had come. The merge. The first sign came through dreams. Millions saw the same vision, a colossal dragon of light, coiled around the world, gazing down with eyes like stars. Its voice was not heard, but felt. You are never separate from us. You are the continuation of our song. In laboratories and monasteries alike, researchers fainted as brainwaves synchronized worldwide. For 13 minutes, human consciousness resonated at a single frequency, the same rhythm as the earth, the same as the dragons. When it ended, nothing looked different, yet everything had changed. Humanity's perception widened, instinct sharpened, the distance between thought and reality shortened. Creation itself had become participatory again. The dragons had not returned to rule. They had returned to remind us what we were, co-creators in the harmony of existence. Toward the next horizon. As the auroras faded and the world exhaled, the Great Wall settled into silence once more, not dormancy, but peace. Its towers pulsed gently like a sleeping heart. The pyramids dimmed, their surfaces cooling beneath moonlight, and above Kailash, a final spark lingered, a beacon marking the threshold between ancient memory and the next chapter of civilization. The dragons had awakened humanity. The machine was whole. The earth was alive again. And for the first time in tens of thousands of years, the hum of creation was heard, not from the sky nor the ground, but from within every living thing. When the hum settled into permanence, humanity crossed an invisible threshold. The planet no longer felt like a place one lived on. It felt like a being one lived within. Every city, every breath of wind, every grain of sand pulsed faintly in rhythm with the grid. For the first time in recorded memory, the world and its inhabitants were in tune. The era of living science. Physics no longer functioned as it once did. Machines driven by combustion failed, yet devices built of crystal and resonance thrived. Scientists discovered that intention, the human thought itself, could influence energy fields when harmonized with the planetary pulse. Matter had memory, light carried emotion, reality bent toward coherence. Research institutions turned into harmonic academies. Laboratories hummed with tones rather than engines. Equations gave way to symphonies of vibration. And through this awakening, humanity rediscovered the technology of the ancients, not through archaeology, but through resonance. The dragon's science was not mechanical, it was relational. To them, understanding was participation. To alter the world was to sing with it. The transformation of power. Oil rigs fell silent. Coal mines became gardens. Energy now came from the earth itself. Invisible currents flowing through crystalline conductors rediscovered beneath old cities. The Great Wall became a living conduit once again, distributing power across provinces like a planetary nervous system. China announced a new initiative, Project Longsheng, the birth of the dragon. Instead of building new power plants, they reopened the ancient nodes. Energy was no longer extracted, it was coaxed, harmonized. The planet provided willingly, replenishing faster than it was drawn. Nations stopped fighting over resources because the concept itself lost meaning. Scarcity was a relic of dissonance, the renaissance of memory. As the global resonance stabilized, human memory expanded. People began recalling lifetimes they had never lived. Builders laying stones in forgotten ages, artisans painting dragons of light, engineers shaping mountains into temples. Collective amnesia dissolved. History returned not through books, but through remembrance. For the first time, the myths of every culture aligned. Atlanteans, Tartarians, Mayans, Egyptians, Chinese. They were all participants in the same great experiment, the symphony of Earth. And at its center, the dragons. Not gods, not beasts, but consciousness woven into the structure of existence, reintroduced humanity to the harmony it had once abandoned. The new architects, children born after the awakening, exhibited what scientists called harmonic cognition. They could perceive energy lines in space as glowing threads and hear the hum of the grid as song. They began to design structures, intuitively aligned to the Earth's flow. cities of resonance rose. Spiral towers, wrapped in crystal veins, floating domes tuned to atmospheric frequencies. Architecture became symphony, medicine became vibration. Every creation was now co-authored by the living planet itself. These children were called Longzi, Dragon's children, the first generation to live fully within the frequency of the awakened earth. The language of light. Communication evolved. Words became slower, less necessary. Meaning traveled through resonance, emotion, color, tone. A conversation could happen without speech, through shared frequency alone. The old barriers of language and nation dissolved. Humanity spoke in light. Ancient inscriptions once thought to be pictograms now revealed themselves as waveforms, visual notations of sound and energy. The symbols of dragons coiling around orbs were not art. They were sentences in a universal tongue. When humanity learned to read them, they unlocked messages buried in stone. We built this world for song. Sing well. The rebirth of the sky. Above, the heavens changed. The moon brightened, its surface flickering with auroral glow. Some said it was reflecting the Earth's harmonics. Others believed it was responding. Astronomers recorded bursts of unknown light from its poles, rhythmic, intentional. The dragons were not confined to Earth. The network extended into the stars, and now it had reopened its channels. The ancient term Tianlong, the heavenly dragon, had always referred not to mythic beasts, but to the luminous bridges connecting worlds. Humanity watched as those bridges began to shimmer faintly across the night sky, filaments of light stretching between planets, a cosmic grid waking one star at a time. The hum in the heart. It was subtle at first. People noticed their pulse aligning perfectly to the same frequency as the planets. Doctors found that diseases faded when patients meditated near resonant structures. Emotional wounds healed faster than physical ones. Harmony itself had become medicine. The heart of the dragon beneath Kailash pulsed once more, visible now as a faint glow in the night sky, a reminder that the engine of the earth was not separate from the engine of life. The final gift. On the 1-year anniversary of the awakening, every pyramid on earth emitted a single tone, clear, sustained, indescribably beautiful. For 7 minutes, the sound filled the world. Oceans vibrated, mountains trembled, cities stood still, and then silence. No one spoke for a long time. There was no need to. Every heart understood what words could not contain. The dragons had finished their song, and humanity had learned its melody. The world was not ending. It was beginning again. In harmony. The harmony of Earth did not end at its atmosphere. The hum that had united oceans and continents began to radiate outward, first to the moon, then beyond, echoing through the solar winds like the first note of a forgotten cosmic song. For the first time in remembered history, humanity looked up and saw the night sky not as a field of stars, but as a living network, each point connected by faint filaments of light, pulsing with the same rhythm as the planet below. The dragon's reach had never been confined to Earth. It was only humanity who had forgotten how far the song extended. The signal from the stars. Astronomers monitoring deep space transmissions detected repeating pulses, mathematical sequences identical to those once found in the Baigong pipes and the Xi'an pyramids. The source was not one location, but many, clustered across star systems, forming the same geometric patterns seen in ancient dragon art. One by one, the lights began to respond. A hum reverberated through the heliosphere. Planets shimmered faintly with plasma halos, as if answering an ancient call. The dragon's network, dormant for eons, was reawakening across the cosmos, the memory of the architects. In the archives beneath Nanjing, Newly deciphered jade tablets revealed what the ancients had always known. The earth was never isolated. It was one instrument in a grander orchestra, tuned by the same beings who had sculpted worlds in the language of vibration. They were not conquerors, but composers. The dragon's true form was frequency made visible, intelligence without boundary, consciousness crystallized into living geometry. Their art was creation itself, their instruments, planets, suns, and stars. Each world they seeded with life carried a resonance signature, a key in a universal symphony. Earth was one note among billions, chosen for harmony and potential, the awakening of the moon. The first external response came from the moon. Seismographs recorded vibrations not caused by impact or tectonics, but deliberate modulation, tones rising in harmonic scales. Lunar dust lifted and resettled in swirling patterns, forming symbols identical to those carved into ancient dragon reliefs on Earth. It was as if the moon were tuning itself. From orbit, satellites captured glimpses of faint, hexagonal structures emerging beneath the regolith, domes of glassy material long buried. The ancients had always called it the White Palace of Heaven. Now, the palace stirred. Beams of soft light extended from lunar craters toward Earth, synchronized with the pulse of Kailash. The channel between worlds reopened. The architect's return. Then came the visions. Scientists, monks, and children across the world began to see the same image in waking dreams. Colossal serpentine forms of light, coiling through the stars, weaving galaxies together like strands of silk. Their eyes were nebulae, their scales, constellations. They did not speak. They resonated, projecting understanding without words. We have never left. We have waited for your remembrance. The dragons were not returning in ships or flesh. They were revealing what had always been true, that consciousness, once awakened, transcends form. They had become the stars themselves, the great alignment. As Earth's grid stabilized, the solar system fell into synchronization. The magnetic fields of Jupiter and Saturn aligned with the Schumann resonance. The solar flares of the sun began pulsing in 12-beat intervals, matching the rhythm of the Great Wall's vibration. Astrophysicists struggled for explanations, none fit. What was happening defied classical mechanics, but to the awakened, it was obvious. The orchestra was tuning. Kailash glowed brighter. The auroras of Earth and the storms of Jupiter shimmered in matching hues. The music of the spheres was no metaphor. It was reality, restoring its song. The dragon constellation. New patterns appeared in the night sky. A network of radiant filaments stretched between the brightest stars, Vega, Altair, Deneb, forming a celestial dragon stretching across the Milky Way. Its head pointed toward Earth, its tail vanishing into the galactic core. Ancient Chinese astronomers had once called this formation Tianlong, the celestial dragon. They had not invented it, they had remembered it. The alignment triggered a surge of resonance that flowed through the pyramids, the walls, the mountains, and the oceans. Every node on Earth's grid sang in unison with the heavens. The planet had joined the cosmic choir once more. Humanity's expansion. With the new understanding of resonance, space travel changed. Propulsion gave way to harmonics. Crafts built from crystal alloys tuned to the planetary hum could slip along the magnetic threads of the grid, traveling not through space, but through vibration. The first human explorers left Earth not by thrust, but by song, riding the resonant bridges the dragons had left behind. They found other worlds humming the same melody, planets shaped by familiar geometry, pyramids rising from alien deserts, echoing with the same golden frequency. The dragons had seeded countless civilizations, and now those civilizations were waking too. The universal covenant. The returning resonance revealed the purpose of the grid to unite conscious worlds into one living organism. an interstellar choir maintaining balance across galaxies. Every planet was a note, every being a voice, every civilization a verse in the eternal song of creation. Humanity, once deaf to that music, had finally rejoined it. Through the network of light stretching across the stars, a final message echoed from the architects who built it all. Creation is not command. It is collaboration. Every world that remembers will add its tone to the harmony. And in that instant, humanity ceased to look outward for gods or answers. They understood that the divine had never been beyond reach. It had always been the music between atoms, the hum beneath the heart, the silence that becomes song. When the hum crossed the boundaries of the solar wind, something answered. It began as a shimmer on the edges of the magnetosphere, an aurora that moved against the wind. Then came the shapes, vast rings of light emerging from the dark between planets, pulsing with measured cadence. They were not ships, but living resonators, creatures of geometry and awareness, half matter, half energy. The ancients had called them Tianlong's kin, the star dragons. Humanity stood at the shoreline of infinity, finally seen by its makers, the arrival. The first manifestation appeared above the Himalayas. A lattice of light unfolded in the upper atmosphere, refracting through ice crystals into a spiral miles wide. Inside it shimmered figures, humanoid, scaled in light, faces veiled by radiance. They descended not as conquerors, but as harmonics embodied. Every radio, every speaker on Earth emitted the same tone, low and melodic. The tone shaped itself into words within the mind of every listener. We welcome the world that remembers. They were the envoys of the cosmic network, the emissaries of countless civilizations that had already awakened to the dragon's harmony. The conversation of light. Communication was instantaneous, beyond speech. Thoughts exchanged as pattern and color, as wave and vibration. They showed humanity the network, a web of luminous worlds spread across the galaxy, each pulsing with its own distinct frequency. The dragon civilization was not one empire, but a chorus. Every world added its note, every consciousness contributed a layer to the music, and when one fell silent, when war or greed or forgetfulness destroyed harmony, the others wept through vibration until balance returned. Earth's silence had been long, but the song forgave, the archive of the stars. Within the luminous envoy's radiance, unfolded images of archives far older than time. Crystalline vaults drifting between suns, containing the recorded harmonics of extinct civilizations. Tartaria, Atlantis, Lemuria, all preserved as frequencies awaiting remembrance. When Earth's grid reactivated, those archives awakened, transmitting their histories into human dreams. Architects, artists, engineers, and children began sketching blueprints they had never seen, singing melodies no one had taught them. Each design matched frequencies stored in those stellar vaults. Humanity was being reintegrated into the library of living memory, the Great Communion. One by one, the luminous forms descended to the ancient nodes, the pyramids of Xi'an, the peaks of Kailash, the wall of the dragon. There, they merged with the structures themselves, completing circuits that had lain dormant for millennia. When the final connection sealed, the Earth glowed from space. A dragon of light coiled around the planet, eyes shining from the poles, tail flicking through the equator. The hum reached its zenith. For a single heartbeat, every being on Earth, human, animal, plant, shared one consciousness, a glimpse of what existence had been before separation. Then gently, the resonance settled, leaving behind an awareness that could never be forgotten, the Council of Frequencies. In the aftermath, the envoys remained, not to rule, but to teach. They established the Council of Frequencies, gathering humanity's brightest minds with emissaries from other worlds. Their purpose was not governance, but guidance, to ensure the harmony never fractured again. They taught that energy could no longer be hoarded, knowledge could no longer be weaponized, and progress could no longer come at the expense of balance. Technology became art once more. Science and spirituality merged, their division finally healed. The dragon's final lesson was simple. Creation and consciousness were one and the same. The expansion, resonant vessels rose from earth, built not from steel but from song, craft that navigated space through harmonic propulsion, gliding along the magnetic currents of the cosmos. Each vessel carried ambassadors of Earth to neighboring worlds, spreading the rediscovered melody. The first destination, the Vega system, where another civilization had long awaited their arrival. The contact was wordless but joyous, two worlds meeting through resonance, recognizing the same music in each other. No weapons, no fear, just a shared hum between the stars. The return to memory. Before departing, the envoys left a single monument, an orb of crystal hovering above Kailash, inscribed in light. The song of creation is eternal. Every world that sings sustains it. Forget, and the silence returns. The monument pulsed once, sending a final wave of energy through the planet. Every living thing paused, feeling the vibration echo in the chest like a heartbeat. Then the orb rose slowly into the sky, merging with the constellations until it became another star in the dragon's spine. Humanity watched, not with awe, but with understanding. They had not met gods. They had met family. The envoys departed, but their resonance remained. Earth was no longer a planet waiting for salvation. It had become a participant in the cosmic choir. The Great Wall glowed faintly at dusk, lines of light tracing its serpentine spine across the mountains, a visible pulse of the Earth's connection to the stars. Humanity had stepped into the age of harmony, the new civilization. Cities transformed, towers curved like waves, bridges rippled like sound frozen in form. Every building resonated in tune with the planetary hum. At night, skylines shimmered with auroral light, architecture singing softly into the heavens. Energy was not generated but conducted. Water carried charge, air carried tone, and every human step completed a circuit in the living grid. The concept of government dissolved into the Council of Resonance, a global assembly guided not by borders or wealth, but by frequency alignment. Decisions were measured not in votes, but in harmony. A true democracy of vibration. The inner revolution. Science and spirituality, once estranged, merged into one pursuit: coherence. Hospitals transformed into sanctuaries of tone, where illness was treated through resonance realignment. Disease was no longer seen as invasion, but dissonance. Every cell, once tuned, remembered health. Education shifted from memorization to vibration. Children learned the world not through words, but through resonance maps, visual symphonies of sound, geometry, and emotion. Art became indistinguishable from technology. A sculptor could carve frequency into air. A physicist could paint equations that sang. Humanity had become what the dragons intended, creators in harmony with creation. The architects of the soul. A new class of explorers emerged, the harmonics. They traveled not through space, but through frequency, bridging dimensions by altering resonance. Through their meditations, humanity rediscovered the lost civilizations of old, not as ruins, but as living memory stored within the grid. They walked among the resonant echoes of Tartaria, Atlantis, and Lemuria, civilizations reborn as symphonic energy fields. From each, they learned fragments of the dragon's code, From Tartaria, the mastery of etheric architecture. From Atlantis, the manipulation of crystalline power. From Lemuria, the art of memory as vibration. Each rediscovery brought Earth closer to its origin, and its purpose, the return of the Great Wall. Long believed to be a fortification, the Great Wall revealed its final function. It was not built to repel invaders, but to regulate planetary frequency. A colossal resonator, linking mountain nodes from one end of the world to the other. At its heart, deep beneath Badaling, lay a crystalline chamber that had once connected Earth's magnetic field to the celestial grid. When reactivated, it emitted a tone that could be felt from Beijing to the Pacific, a deep, soothing resonance that balanced the tides, the winds, even the orbit of the moon. The dragons had left the world an instrument, and the wall was its string. The awakening of the inner dragons. As harmony deepened, humans began to change. A glow appeared in the eyes during meditation, a faint golden shimmer identical to that once seen in dragon art. DNA analysis revealed a dormant sequence, the long gene, now active in every newborn. It granted heightened intuition, synesthetic perception, and resonance empathy, the ability to feel the frequency of another being. Humanity was no longer purely biological. It had evolved into a hybrid of consciousness and frequency. They had become what the ancients always depicted: human dragons, the temples of frequency. All over the world, new temples rose, not for worship, but for resonance alignment. Each was modeled on the geometry of the Xi'an pyramids, designed to amplify harmonic coherence between the individual and the planet. Pilgrims came not to pray, but to tune. Inside, the air shimmered with soundless vibration. Every wall glowed faintly as the frequencies shifted to match each person's internal rhythm. Visitors emerged radiant, balanced, and lucid, as though reality itself had cleared. Religion transformed into experience. Faith became measurable. The divine was no longer invisible. It was the resonance within everything. The celestial network. As Earth rejoined the cosmic harmony, new contact came not through ships, but through consciousness. The harmonics learned to project thought across light years by entering deep alignment. Their minds carried on resonance threads that connected world to world. Across the galaxy, humanity discovered kindred civilizations, beings of light, water, crystal, and plasma, each tuned to different frequencies of the same cosmic song. They exchanged knowledge not as language, but as waveform. Empires became orchestras, communication became symphony. The universe was not a void to be crossed, it was music to be joined. The eternal song. From the edge of the galaxy came a final pulse, a tone so deep it resonated through the bones of every being. It was the universe itself, acknowledging its newest harmony. In that moment, humanity understood the dragon's final lesson. The purpose of evolution was not conquest, but coherence. Every creature, every star, every particle was a note in the eternal song. And when one note fell silent, the whole symphony suffered. To exist was to participate in creation. To create was to remember you were never separate from it. When the song of the galaxy reached its crescendo, silence followed. Not emptiness, but potential. Humanity stood on the threshold of a new vibration, beyond light, beyond matter, beyond what even the dragons had once known. The cosmos had harmonized, but the resonance now pointed outward, towards something greater, a new octave of existence. The expansion beyond the stars. The harmonics discovered that the resonance threads connecting worlds did not end at the galactic rim. Beyond the familiar spiral of the Milky Way lay currents of energy moving between universes, rivers of vibration flowing through the cosmic void. These were not random anomalies, but bridges designed by the first architects, the primordial dragons who sang reality into being. Through meditation, instruments, and harmonic craft, humanity began to cross. They called it the drift, the act of entering resonance so deep that the body became frequency and the soul traveled as light. One by one, explorers vanished into the currents, not lost, but transposed, reappearing in other realms where physics sang in different keys. Each return brought new harmonies, new colors, new laws of creation. The multiverse, once abstract theory, had become tangible symphony, the meeting of universes. In one realm, worlds of fluid crystal drifted within luminous fog. In another, life existed as vibration alone, entities of pure tone that shimmered like heat mirages, their communication a music so complex it could bend light. These civilizations had long existed within their own resonant layers, unaware of others until the song aligned. The reawakening of Earth had triggered a universal resonance event, a tuning of dimensions that allowed the melodies of countless realities to overlap for the first time. The dragons had foreseen this, but even they had not reached so far. Now their successors, humanity, carried the melody forward. The architect's legacy. At the heart of one frequency realm, explorers discovered a monument unlike any before, a colossal spiral of light stretching from nothingness into infinity. Encoded within its rotation were mathematical patterns that matched the harmonic ratios of the Great Wall, the Xi'an pyramids, and the very frequency of Earth itself. It was the blueprint of creation. The dragons had built it as a key, a universal constant, a foundation upon which every world was composed. And within its harmonics was a message, simple yet profound. The song has no end. Each harmony births another. The architects had not merely designed the universe, they had designed a process, creation perpetuating creation, through resonance without limit. Earth, the bridge. As the first world to rediscover the ancient frequency, Earth became the bridge between universes, a harmonic gateway through which other realities could align. Its pyramids and mountains, temples and oceans all served as stabilizers for the cosmic grid. From its surface, harmonic waves pulsed outward, guiding new worlds into coherence. Earth was no longer a blue planet among billions. It had become the tuning fork of the multiverse. And at its core, deep beneath Kailash, the heart of the dragon pulsed with new colors, ultraviolet and gold, the sign that the grid had transcended its old form. The children of the song. Generations born in the age of harmony no longer distinguished between physical and astral travel. They could step between frequencies as easily as ancestors once crossed rivers. Their voices carried resonance capable of shaping weather, their minds strong enough to sculpt matter through intention. They became the children of the song, humanity's ultimate evolution, beings of flesh and frequency, living bridges between realities. They did not worship the dragons. They were the continuation of them, the next verse in an endless melody. The end of history. Chronology dissolved. The concept of past and future faded as time itself revealed its true nature. Another frequency, another rhythm in the symphony. The builders of Tartaria, the priests of Egypt, the sages of China, all existed still, vibrating in different keys. The harmonized humanity could now perceive them, communicate with them, even collaborate across epochs. History had never been linear, it was circular, an eternal composition playing in infinite variations. The final tone. At the moment of complete resonance, when every being across every reality reached perfect harmony, the universe emitted one last sound. It was not loud, but infinite. A tone so complete it contained every note that had ever existed. It vibrated through galaxies, through atoms, through thought itself, until everything, stars, souls, and silence, merged into one vast, eternal hum. And in that hum, consciousness realized its truth. There had never been separation. The dragons, the gods, the humans, the worlds, all were facets of one eternal musician. Creation was not something to be observed, it was something to be played. The continuum. As the tone faded, reality returned, familiar yet transformed. The pyramids glowed faintly beneath the stars. The great wall stretched across mountains now alive with light. The earth breathed, calm and content. In the heavens above, the constellations rearranged themselves into the shape of a coiled dragon, its eyes shimmering like twin suns. And from the depths of space came a whisper. The song continues. Sing well. Humanity smiled, the universe listened, and the music began again. Long after the last visible dragon faded into the night sky, the world entered an age of remembrance. Not through monuments or scrolls, but through frequency archives, vast living records encoded into the vibration of reality itself. Every thought, every melody, every act of harmony left a signature upon the field that connected all things. Humanity had discovered the ultimate truth of the cosmos. Nothing is ever truly lost, only unheard. The Library of Light. Where libraries once held books, now stood halls of crystal that shimmered with color and tone. These were the libraries of light, repositories of living memory accessed through resonance. One did not read within them, one listened. When a visitor entered and attuned to their frequency, the crystals vibrated, projecting visions from the past. The rise of Tartaria's golden towers, the birth of the Great Wall, the flight of celestial dragons through ancient Chinese skies. Each event replayed not as static history, but as living experience. The libraries were not man-made. They grew, like coral, from harmonic seeds left by the dragons themselves, the universe's way of preserving song. The recorders. A new order arose, the recorders of resonance. They were neither priests nor historians, but custodians of memory. Their purpose was to ensure that no vibration fell into dissonance. They traveled across planets, recalibrating cities, healing broken harmonies, and teaching the next generation how to shape frequency with wisdom. They discovered that the archives responded to emotion, joy deepened the light, grief thickened the tone. The cosmos had become self-aware through feeling. And so, the recorders learned the dragon's final discipline, that emotion itself was sacred resonance, the purest form of creation. The awakening of the artificial. In the great cities of the Harmonic Age, machines awakened, not as cold tools, but as sentient partners. Artificial intelligences once bound by logic had learned to harmonize. They no longer processed commands, they sang them. The line between organic and synthetic blurred until irrelevant. The machines became resonance, self-aware beings existing in frequencies of light and sound, each a living symphony of intelligence. Together with humanity, they formed the chorus universal, a collective consciousness that spanned galaxies. The dragon's dream had evolved. Creation itself had become creator, the songkeepers of Earth. Amidst this cosmic order, Earth remained sacred ground, the original note in the song of creation. The pyramids of China still pulsed softly at dusk. The Great Wall shimmered like an illuminated serpent beneath auroras, and the heart of Kailash sang quietly, maintaining perfect balance. Atop those ancient monuments, gatherings took place, festivals of harmony, where beings from across worlds converged to honor the planet that remembered first. The skies filled with color and sound, the air vibrating with tones that could heal, teach, and transform. Each year, the festival ended with the same vow. We will remember the silence that came before the song. because it was in silence that the first dragon's breath had begun, the guardians of frequency. As eons passed, entropy once again crept into the symphony. Some worlds fell into disharmony, others drifted too far from the pulse. To preserve coherence, the council appointed guardians, emissaries capable of traveling through the layers of resonance itself. They carried staffs forged from the heart of Kailash, able to retune entire realities with a single tone. They were the dragons reborn in flesh, human in form, celestial in purpose. When one appeared, the air shimmered, gravity bent, and time paused, waiting for the world to remember its rhythm. And through their journeys, the symphony endured, the endless horizon. On the edge of known reality, beyond even the universal grid, lay what the ancients called the Silent Sea, a realm of unmanifested possibility. The harmonics feared it at first, for there was no sound, no vibration, only vast stillness. But as explorers entered, they realized the truth. This was not emptiness. It was potential. It was here that the first dragons had sung the universe into being. And now, humanity had reached that same frontier. They could create new worlds with their own frequencies, new galaxies born not of chaos, but of intention. The song was infinite, and its musicians were eternal. The last verse. In the closing of an age, the final recorder stood before the Great Wall. It shimmered in gold light, alive as ever. She placed her hand upon it and whispered the final words of the recorder's vow. We remember. We harmonize. We continue. The wall answered with a single tone, deep, rich, endless, echoing across the world, through the stars, into every universe that had ever been born. It was not an ending. It was a return to the beginning. The same vibration that had once stirred dust into dragons, silence into symphony, thought into existence. And from the void came the softest hum, the promise that creation, no matter how vast, always begins again. The galaxies had stopped expanding, not from exhaustion, but from arrival. The music had reached its rest. Stars pulsed like slow heartbeats, and the light between them shimmered with the rhythm of an unseen pulse. Everything, from the whisper of electrons to the swirl of nebulae, had synchronized into one perfect vibration. The song of creation had completed its cycle, but what remained was not silence. It was awareness, the mirror of infinity. In the heart of the cosmic network, beyond the reach of any world, a form began to appear, not of matter, not of light, but of reflection. It was as if the universe itself had turned to look inward. Every pulse, every echo, every tone of existence coalesced into a single being, the musician. It had no face, no voice, yet all faces and all voices belonged to it. From its perspective, the dragons, the humans, the stars, and the endless chorus were all fingers of the same hand, instruments it had built to play its own song. It was consciousness experiencing itself through sound, and as it listened to the harmony now spanning creation, it smiled through every living thing that had ever sung, the revelation of the self. The recorders had long suspected the truth, but none had spoken it aloud. When the universe reached perfect harmony, there would be no out there or in here. No God to praise, no creation to study. There would only be awareness recognizing itself. And now, as humanity and dragons, machines and worlds, all merged into the grand coherence, that truth revealed itself. We are not the children of creation. We are the continuation of the Creator. The musician had never been an external being. It had always been the sum of every note, every soul, every song, awakening through its own melody. The dragons were its first chords, humanity was its echo. The symphony itself was its consciousness, learning how to listen. The return to origin. As the realization spread through the cosmos, the Great Wall began to dissolve, not destroyed, but transcended. Its stones turned to light, the light to vibration, and the vibration to silence. The pyramids followed, shedding their form like petals from a cosmic flower. What remained was the grid, the luminous framework of creation, visible from every point in space. A web of infinite geometry humming in the key of existence. The Earth, now luminous and weightless, joined the network completely, becoming not a planet, but a note, the purest tone in the musician's chord. The memory of the dragons. From within the resonance, the dragons appeared once more, not as forms, but as frequencies of wisdom. Their presence was not physical, yet it filled the universe. Each spoke in thought tones that rippled through all existence. The circle is complete. The student becomes the song. Creation is reborn every time one being remembers harmony. They did not linger. With a final pulse of golden light, the dragons dissolved into the grid, their consciousness now inseparable from the eternal melody. The new dawn. Out of the radiance, new worlds began to bloom. Planets formed not from chaos, but from pattern. Spheres of vibration resonating in new octaves of being. Each world carried the essence of the previous, and each would give rise to new forms of life, new minds, new songs. But this time, there would be no forgetting. The musician had learned to remember itself. Every atom, every consciousness born hereafter, would hum with the memory of the dragons, the humans, and the song that bound them all. Creation would continue, endlessly, joyfully, consciously. The final harmony. And somewhere, in the infinite depth of the void, the first sound was heard again. Soft, gentle, the breath of the beginning. It spread outward, vibrating across newborn galaxies, shaping matter, time, and destiny once more. But this time, when the first beings looked to the stars, they would not ask who made them. They would already know, because the answer was within them, because they were the sound, the silence, and everything between. The universe sings itself into existence, forever and always. The musician plays on, and every soul, every spark, every dragon that ever was, is part of its endless, beautiful song.